So my introduction, by the way, so I'm an entrepreneur by profession, and I take on implementation phase projects with StrategyConnect, uh, typically project management kind of projects. So whenever something, so instead of building strategies, I prefer taking project management, getting work done kind of projects with StrategyConnect, right? So COP28 is a global sort of, so it's a UN sponsored global climate change conference where countries from all over the world and obviously businesses pledge to sort of take initiatives and pledges to tackle this entire climate change as a problem, right? 28 is effectively the 20th edition of the conference. And the venue for this conference was UAE. So UAE was the host country for this event. So every year, so every sort of edition of the COP conference, the host country changes. So for this time, it was the UAE, right? And the event was held in Dubai. It's actually fairly extensive. It's spread over 14 to 15 days with presidents, prime ministers, global leaders, think tanks, all attending and sort of opining on the climate change problem. And the intention is to sort of again come together to collectively pledge initiatives to solve for the climate problem that this world is facing, right? Uh, so my client on this project is a company called Crescent Enterprises. So think of COP28 as a multi-agenda, multi-moving parts, big anchor umbrella event, whereby certain days and certain sections were organized by different companies. So Crescent Enterprises was required to organize the Business and Philanthropy Climate Forum as part of the COP28 event. And this was an invite-only event. And the focus of this segment of COP28 was how can businesses and philanthropic organizations come to pledge the capital required for climate initiatives. So focused two-day invite-only event where Crescent was the client who was responsible for the end-to-end execution of this segment of COP28, right? So, and obviously StrategyConnect. So Crescent Enterprises engaged with StrategyConnect to provide PM level execution bandwidth to help organize the event, right? So those are three stakeholders involved in this overall project. My interaction, largely as part of the BPCF organizing team, was with Crescent Enterprises, who was the client, and not as much as with the COP28 organizing team, which is the umbrella team. So any insights that are shared on this technical presentation is related to only the experiences associated with the Business and Philanthropic Climate Forum segment of COP28. Okay, so that's one sort of setting the scene. As the PM team on our, so the PM team for this event was, the PMO team for the event was largely responsible for agenda, speakers, and attendees. Because this was a private only event and Crescent is a fairly affluent, it's run by a fairly affluent family in Dubai and the UAE, right? So we do not have to fend for sponsorships. Sure, there was a lot of media and communication related work streams associated with this event. And obviously, venue and food is an important part of any event, right? That being said, the PMO that we're talking of took care of the agenda, the speakers, and the attendees, right? So the insights on this entire conversation will be limited to those three segments of organizing an event, as our team did not sort of touch upon too much with sponsorships. Uh, yes, there was venue and food and media and communications involved, but that was taken care of by a separate team in of Crescents. The format for today will be more sharing insights and learnings across these three segments: the agenda, speakers, and attendees, talking a little bit about the organization structure of how our PMO team was structured, what are the problems we faced, and if in the future you end up becoming part of any event-based project management team, right? Then hopefully some insights and the learning experiences from here can help you navigate these situations better, right? Interestingly, a lot of the members on the PMO team over here, as well as from the client team, we were not seasoned event organizers. It's not as if we had too much experiences. We've not been doing this for a living prior, right? Some of them were investors, some of them were, McKinsey consultants, some of them like me, I was I am an entrepreneur. So I would say that 90% of the team, for a lot of us, it was a first time experience organizing an event of this magnitude and of this global significance, right? So hence a lot of interesting learning and insights along the journey. Now, the way I will structure this conversation is that I'll share a few insights across each of these segments. But before I move on to the next segment, I would be happy to field questions related to each segment, right? So instead of making it one long talk and then Q&A towards the end, we will do segment, sharing insights, ask then a little bit of Q&A, and then again move on to the next segment. Cool. So from an agenda standpoint, one of the very important aspects of any event is agenda, right? So the way we have to think about an agenda is that, okay, is it a 1-day event? Is it a 2-day event? Or is it a 3-day event, right? Apart from the event, how many rooms and parallel sessions are there going to be conducted, right? So in our situation, it was a 2-day event. There were 4 parallel session venues, right? So the cumulative capacity between the 4 venues was about 1,000 attendees. So, and we had about 10 to 12 back-to-back sessions per venue, right? Per sort of room. So effectively, the overall event required 50 unique knowledge sessions, right? So when you're talking from an agenda standpoint, right, and 50 unique sessions on varied topics, it becomes quickly, one event becomes a complex grid of 50 different moving parts, right? Because each session requires its own set of speakers to be managed, invited, confirmed. It requires its own set of logistics, presentations, everything, right? So one big insight is that while you might be signing up for an event, your single unit should be each session. So your entire operations have to be planned with each session becoming the operating unit as you think about your execution bandwidth. Few insights from this entire. It's extremely important to have a first version of an agenda at least 3 to 4 months before you even start approaching the speakers, right? Or even doing any publicity associated with the event, right? Even before thinking about sponsors. So the first thing probably is to get a first draft of the agenda in. There will be changes, there will be iterations, there will be a team of members who will have inputs on the agenda, right? What are the sessions? What's the topic, the central theme of each session, etc. Right? Uh, it's extremely important to also place it from a scheduling standpoint, key which session will follow what session. And the objective is that from your first version to, let's say, a final or a near final version, try and keep at least a 30-day gap between the near final version and the actual event. And I'll tell you logistically why that is important, right? Because in our case, we did not, by the way. Yeah? So that's the reason. That's one of the biggest learning, that our agenda was also evolving till literally T-2, right? Uh, and in fact, we got the near final agenda only event minus 15 days, which in hindsight was a little leaving it too late kind of a situation. The reason behind that is once your agenda is finalized, a lot of speakers need to be invited and they will confirm to which session they are speaking with, right? So if you're continuously changing the agenda, uh, some speakers who've confirmed will then not be available for the changed slot. At the same time, if you're continuously adding more agenda sessions, then you're leaving the work stream of speaker invitation too late, right? So as you're thinking about an agenda, extremely imperative as a rule of thumb to try and get the agenda sorted to a near final stage, at least 30 to 45 days before the actual event. The bigger events like the World Economic Forum, they have the agenda set a lot earlier than even 45 days, right? So another insight was that if it's a 2-day event, don't change the days, because a lot of the speakers who are high profile people, uh, 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 they may not be available on the second day. And the often enough what happens is that once you have a highlight speaker for each session, and especially if it's a panel discussion, right, a lot of the other panelists are confirming because of that speaker's presence in that panel. So if you change the agenda, the session from one day to the next, and if that star speaker is not able to attend, then the risk is that your entire panel might fall through, right? So which is why extremely important, try not to change days. And even from a timing standpoint, we face a lot of situations where we moved the session from a second half to, let's say, the first half for certain reasons. That also creates a lot of chaos, because often enough the speakers, they are they might have just committed that 3-hour block to your event. Second half they might have another engagement, right? So again, plus minus 1 hour rescheduling, sure, still manageable. 15 minutes extension, 15 minutes shortening, still manageable. But try not to change the days of your sessions, and try not to change between the first half and the second half of that's almost equivalent to a change of day. That's agenda. Any questions that I can field at this stage with respect to the agenda setting of any event? Okay. If not, then I will sort of move on to the next segment, which is the important segment, is the speakers, right? So we were so quite a few heavy hitters were a part of our entire event, right? So from Bill Gates to the IMF MD to the World Bank MD, these were all global personalities that lent their time, to participate in this event. So one of the biggest insights is that so initially we were struggling for speakers to confirm for the event, but the moment we got 2 or 3 heavy hitters to confirm the presence as speakers on the event, right? Uh, the snowball effect started, right? So the biggest insight, try and identify the heavy hitters that you want to invite for an event, approach them early. Their schedules are even busier than maybe that of all the potential speakers, right? So which is why it's extremely important to have the few fixed sessions with these heavy hitters fixed very early on. That will set the tone of a cascading effect of other people also then confirming on the back of these star people who've confirmed for event, right? Second, if you're thinking in terms of, let's say, per session, right? And you need, it's a 5 people plenary or it's a 5 people roundtable. At least have a list of 25 potential people you can invite for that topic, right? Second, do your research, background research with respect to what is their field of work or expertise in that particular topic, whether as a representative of their company or in their personal accord. So creating this list of potential speakers is extremely important. Think of it as a pure outbound sales effort that you have to make to be able to invite these speakers to be a part of your event, right? So hence having a long list is important per session. And second is instead of sending generic email invites, it's important to customize your outreaches to these people, mentioning the specific work that they're doing in the field based on the topic of your event, right? Of your session. What that does is it improves your chances of getting them to confirm for your session, right? So don't just create a random list of people you potentially want to invite. You have to think at a per session level that for each session, who's the right person or the group of people to invite. And then reach out to them, specifically inviting them for that particular session's topic, right? And the closer the fit, the better the high probability of them accepting. It's absolutely okay for you to have a person shortlist for 2-3 different sessions. That's absolutely fine, right? Eventually, a lot will depend upon how much time that person is willing to give. But yeah, this long list and customized outreach is extremely important. There will be last minute confirmations and last minute cancellations. So if, for example, you need 4 people to be a part of a panel, plan for at least 6 confirmations, right? At the same time, because there could be 1 or 2 cancellations, which means that's the tricky part, that ideally you have 1 hour for each session. You want it to be with 4 people, but you have to shoot for 5 or 6 confirmations, which means if none of them cancel, that panel will then become a 5-6 people panel, right? With the increase in the number of panelists, if nobody cancels, the implication is the talk time per person reduces dramatically, right? So here is a little bit of an event logistics that you have to try and balance with while planning your confirmed attendees. So always budget for at least 1 or 2 more people per session in situations of multi-people session, right? Once you're inviting them, have the event logistics questions ready. Each speaker wants to understand the event logistics about how to get there, who will be the contact person, venue requirements, presentation requirements. You almost have to send them even the template of the standardized template in which they have to make their slides. You have to tell them to the level of detail that you will have only, even though it's a 1 hour session, you might have only 7 minutes to speak. You will have to give them details around the questions they are going to be asked. So these are all heavy hitters. You would think that they're answering impromptu. No, it doesn't happen. All the questions that are going to be asked are pre-sent to them, right? To the extent they even like to know the sequence in which they will be asked questions. So that was a great insight for me as a organizing this event of this magnitude. So the busier the person, the more he will need to know, and often enough, it's their media and communications team that has to vet the questions that you're going to ask them in that panel discussion or in that individual presentation. So plan for these logistics with respect to they won't just randomly come and talk. Everything is pre-planned to the extent that in certain sessions, there were literally plannings to the level of key question 1 will take only 3 minutes, question 2 will take 3 minutes. So you had to detail out to the level of 3 minutes per question. So if 45 minutes, then 15 such questions. If 5 people, then 3 questions per person. So that's the level of detailing sometimes you're required to do with respect to understanding and sharing with the speakers with respect to what they're going to be speaking of. Any questions related to speakers at this stage before I move on to the attendance and attendee management? Okay, I shall move on to the next segment. So from an attendee standpoint, again, have multiple registration desks. It seems straightforward, but it's not that easy because classic event logistics, there is peak entry time. So for example, if our start was 10 a.m., from 9th a.m. all the way to 11 a.m., there was a lot of people coming during that phase. So there were longer queues during the start time. So every event will have a certain time in which 80% of your attendees will come. So which means you need to design your manpower, the check-in manpower, based on that peak hour, right? So second, usually speaker badges, have them printed and available early, have a separate desk for speakers, right? Because while there's so many attendees who might be coming, let the speakers have a separate desk, maybe even have 2-3 counters dedicated to a speaker, especially in situations where each of these were busy and important people, right? From country ambassadors to even country presidents with their own convoys and everything. So have a separate 2 or 3 stations designated only to speakers. Whereas for the rest of the attendees, have several stations. So one of the good benchmark when you're thinking in terms of queue planning, in terms of how many stations, is that if 80% of your audience is going to come within a 2-hour window, right? You have to try that the queue does not extend to more than 3 or 4 people. If it becomes a 15-20 people queue as they're waiting to check in, their experience is getting compromised, right? So even if it is, let's say, 1 minute check-in or 30 seconds check-in per person, so you'll do the math, you'll be able to arrive at the number of stations you need to be able to process that volume of people coming in, right? Interestingly, our event was invite only, yet we thought that the invitations are in, people have accepted, those are the only people who will come. Yet on both the days, there were several people. So let's say if you had invited person X, he brought other people, or some other set of people got to know of the event and just landed up at the venue. So you will need at least 1 or 2 people making discretionary calls in the moment of who to let in and who to politely decline, right? So even if you might think it's an invite only event, there will be walk-ins, and you will need, and you can't leave it to the security team because you have to be polite to people. So from the organizing team, there has to be a couple of competent, polite enough people to be able to tell people that, hey, this is an invite-only event. Sorry, but no thanks. We can't let you in. At the same time, they should also have the ability to make judgment calls when they are allowed in. For example, right? Bill Gates' team, they had shared that they'll be bringing a convoy of only 5 people. And they had sent the list of the 5 people that they'll be bringing. But on the day, in the moment, right, 10 people came. Now, the question was, okay, it's Bill Gates' team. Do we allow only the 5 that were pre-registered, or do we allow all 10? Right? So it's these kind of judgment calls that you'll have to make at some point of time in your entire sort of, even in invite-only events. Tech-enabled registrations, again, plan for goof-ups. We had a QR code-based check-in mechanism, which in the moment, there were several delays and technological challenges, right? So plan for a backup associated with tech goof-ups, right? And beyond the point, we had to then go with respect to manual batches alongside for people who are not. So there were a lot of people who said, "Ki we pre-registered." They showed us their registration confirmations, and yet they were not registered in the system, and hence their badges had not been printed. So you understand, in terms of, you would imagine that the tech should flow seamlessly, but often enough it doesn't. So either choose a tech vendor very carefully, or sort of have a manual effort as a backup also, to be able to allow people to check in during the registration. Okay, so the last segment of this conversation is what did the team look like, and how you should think in terms of building your own team should you find yourself in the PM structure. So for the event, there'll be an overall project manager, right? This project manager will require a couple of assistant project managers because of the various work streams that are happening. The biggest work stream is going to be speaker management and attendee management, apart from this project manager. So ensure you have enough people, separate sets of people managing the speakers, right? And the little bit of a formula is that think of this as having to manage 100 outbound conversations, each with their own separate flows of confirmations, questions, reconfirmations, event logistics, etc., etc., etc. Right? So plan for so if you think about the number of sessions as the starting point, number of people required per session, speakers, right? So in our case, let's say there were 50 sessions, and we required, assume, 5 speakers per session. So that means we required 250 confirmed speakers, right? And if we had to have 10 people or 25 people, right? Ratio of 1:5, that means we had to send an outreach list of at least 1,500 people. It's not possible for a single person to manage 1,500 unique conversation nodes. So you will need several sets of teams. So think of it ratio wise in terms of how many unique conversations divided by 100 or 200, whatever the number is, those many separate set of people just focused on speaker management, right? In our case, there were 3 distinct people focused on speaker management, and they were always stretched for bandwidth. And then we had to augment their bandwidth by another set of 3 people assisting them, right? So effectively 6 people were dedicated only to speaker management related conversations, right? And still it was a stretch, right? There was an event registration and attendee management team, and this including an external vendor deploying 3 people. In it, from the internal team, there were another set of 3 people who are handling just the invite-only registrations and attendee management, right? So this in itself was a 6-people team that was handling this work stream. Another important role that people often reflect. So if your event venue is spread across multiple rooms, or if a person has, if you're so our BPCF, the philanthropic forum, was part of the overall COP event, right? So a lot of speakers had to come to our event, and then after that they had committed their time to some other, let's say, segment of the venue, right? uh, After event they could be speaking at McKinsey's work stream, they could be speaking at the government's work stream, whatever it is. So when you pick a big event venue, make sure you have a single point of contact who's responsible for the transportation of speakers from one part of the venue to the other part of the venue, right? So this event logistics, the buggies alone became an entire work stream that became extremely important. There was another team dedicated wholly solely to the technical run of show, which is, the final 2-3 days. Who's going to be the compare, who's going to be the speaker, just managing the slides, changing slides, and everything, right? From our side, we did not have to look into food and beverages, but in any event scenario, there will be a point of contact or a team who will be looking into the food and beverage experience of the entire event. Even if your host venue is taking care of it, still on your project management team, there will still need to be a point of contact who's taking care of the food and beverage work stream. Like I said, in our situation, we did not have to fend for sponsorships, but imagine, so there will be another work stream associated with just chasing sponsorships for the event. And obviously, media and communications is a big work stream. In our case, there was a 6 to 8 people team who was taking care of just the media and communications aspect. And this apart from a vendor who was a PR agency, right? Writing articles, liaising with news, this thing, right? Social media handling, live snippets, right? Insights, note taking for the post-event release of the report. Big work stream, big work stream, right? So any event that one organizes, it requires a lot of people, and all those people are typically working for this big day, right? So it was an interesting experience with respect to project managing this entire event. Cool. So that's my 2 cents on the experiences associated with an event management kind of project that you guys might find yourselves in.